The Impala's tires shrieked against West Oakland asphalt. 4 doors opened. 4 men stepped out. The black paint caught afternoon sun like polished steel, throwing heat across cracked pavement where Malik passed the ball to Bruce Lee. The children's laughter hung in summer air until boots hit concrete. Ramon led, 6 feet of muscle wrapped in ink. Serpents coiled up his forearms, their scales flexing as he walked. Behind him, 3 shadows fanned across the chain-link fence. Hector, Lewis, Manny, their footsteps deliberate, crushing bottle caps into dust. Bruce caught the ball mid-bounce, his hands stilled. The kids froze, Jamal mid-dribble, Rodney with his arms raised for a pass, Malik 2 steps from the hoop. They knew those boots, they knew that walk. Ramon's voice cut through playground noise like a blade through silk. Courts closed. "We're using it," no question in his tone, no room for negotiation. Jamal's fingers went slack, the basketball dropped, 1 bounce, 2, 3. Each thud echoed against apartment walls where mothers watched from windows, curtains falling back into place. The ball rolled to a stop at Ramon's feet. Imagine being 10 years old in that silence, feeling your throat close around words you're too afraid to speak. The kids were here first. Bruce straightened from his crouch, knees unfolding smooth as water. His voice carried no challenge, just fact. Ramon's boots crunched on cracked asphalt, each step deliberate, loud. Tattoos rippled across forearms as muscle tensed beneath ink, serpents coiling tighter with every stride. The distance between them collapsed, 6 feet away, 4, 2. Behind Ramon, his crew fanned out like wolves. Hector drifted left toward the chain-link fence. Lewis moved right, cutting off the street exit. Manny blocked the alley gap between buildings. The trap closed without a word, practiced choreography from 100 territorial plays. I don't care who was here first. Ramon's breath smelled of cigarettes and beer. I'm here now. Malik's fingers tightened around his basketball, knuckles white. Jamal clutched his backpack straps like lifelines. Rodney pressed himself against the fence, metal rattling against his spine. Bruce didn't step back, didn't blink. His shoulders stayed loose, hands open at his sides. Few could understand what the children felt in that moment. Watching someone refuse to run when running was the only sane option. The air tasted metallic, charged with what comes before violence breaks. Ramon's shadow swallowed Bruce whole, and that's when the smaller man smiled. That smile held its ground even as Ramon's boots stopped inches from Bruce's sneakers. There are other courts. Bruce's voice carried no challenge, only fact. Let the kids finish their game. The crew erupted behind Ramon, laughter sharp as broken glass, metallic and mocking. Lewis slapped his thigh. Hector shook his head, gold chain catching afternoon sun. Manny grinned, uncertain but obligated. "You want to negotiate, old man?" Ramon's lips curled. Sweat darkened his collar despite the breeze that stirred dust across cracked asphalt. Bruce met the glare without flinching. 27 years compressed into calm muscle memory. "I want you to make a better choice." The laughter died. Ramon's jaw locked tight, tendons rising beneath ink. Few could understand what that silence cost him. Every eye watching, every reputation point tallied in real time. His crew behind, the children frozen. This stranger refusing the script. The only choice, Ramon leaned closer, voice dropping to gravel, is whether you leave walking or crawling. The words hung between them like a drawn blade. But Bruce's stance didn't shift, and something in that stillness suggested the blade might cut both ways. A physics Ramon hadn't calculated when he parked the Impala 10 minutes ago. "If you make me fight you in front of these children, you'll lose more than the fight." Bruce's voice stayed level, surgical, each word a scalpel cutting through Ramon's armor. "You'll lose their respect. They know you. They live here." Ramon's jaw shifted, the muscles in his neck tensed, cords standing out against brown skin slick with sweat. Behind him, Hector's arms remained crossed. Lewis had stopped moving entirely. Manny's breathing came shallow and quick. "Do you want them to remember you as the man who bullied kids and got handled?" The question hung in the thick Oakland heat. Cicadas buzzed from somewhere beyond the chain-link fence. The ball sat motionless on cracked asphalt, orange against gray. Malik's eyes were wide, watching, recording. Jamal clutched his backpack strap so tight his knuckles had gone pale. Little Rodney stood frozen, a statue carved from fear and fascination. Ramon's fist clenched so tight the tattooed skin had gone white, unclenched, slightly, just the pinky finger releasing first, then the ring finger. His chest rose and fell, rose and fell. The children would remember. They always did, but what story would they tell? Or you can be the man who let the kids finish their game. Bruce's voice carried no challenge, only invitation. Their hero instead of their nightmare. The words hung in the summer heat like gasoline vapor waiting for a spark. Behind Ramon, his crew shifted. Hector crossed his arms, jaw working, disapproval carved into the deep lines around his mouth. Louis spat, the sound sharp against cracked asphalt, a wet punctuation of contempt. Manny's gaze flickered between his leader and the smaller man, uncertainty bleeding through his stillness. The children held their breath. Malik's fingers tightened around the basketball. Jamal pressed closer to the chain-link fence. Little Rodney's eyes went wide as moons. Ramon stood at the center of it all, every eye locked on him. His reputation, built brick by brick through years of fear and respect, balanced on the edge of this single moment. The sun beat down on tattooed shoulders. A bead of sweat traced the line of his jaw. Few could understand the weight he carried, the pressure of being watched by both worlds at once. His crew expected one answer. The children prayed for another. What happened next would define him forever. Silence swallowed the court. No one moved, no one breathed. A car horn bleated somewhere distant, then died. The chain-link fence trembled in a breeze too faint to cool the sweat beating on Ramon's temple. It rolled down slow, catching light before disappearing into the dark line of his jaw. His eyes swept the children first. Malik stood frozen, basketball tucked against his ribs. Jamal's mouth hung slightly open. Rodney's small hands gripped the fence wire, knuckles white. Their faces reflected something Ramon had never sought before, hope, fragile as glass. Then his gaze shifted to Bruce. The smaller man hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. His stance remained rooted, balanced, impossibly calm. Behind Ramon, his crew waited. Hector's jaw worked silently. Louis shifted weight from boot to boot, asphalt grinding beneath his heel. Manny's eyes darted between the scene and the Impala, escape route mapped. The whole neighborhood seemed to hold its pulse. Windows reflected sunlight. Shadows stretched long across cracked concrete. Ramon's fingers drummed against his thigh once, twice, 3 times. Each tap a calculation. Each second a war between who he'd been and who he might choose to become. His hands stilled. The words that left his mouth next would seal everything. 15 minutes, the words cut through the afternoon heat like a blade through paper. Ramon jerked his chin toward the black Impala. Then we're on. His boots scraped asphalt as he turned. Hector glanced at Louis. Louis stared at Manny. None of them moved, not yet. The moment stretched, pulled taut between obedience and confusion. Then Hector's shoulders dropped. He followed. Louis spat once more before trailing behind. Manny exhaled slow and joined the retreat. Bruce nodded once, clean. The basketball hit pavement, tentative. A single bounce that echoed off chain-link fence and cracked concrete. Malik caught it, fingers trembling against worn leather. Jamal leaned close to Bruce, his whisper barely audible over the hum of distant traffic. "How did you do that?" Bruce wiped sweat from his temple with the back of his hand. "I gave him a choice where winning doesn't require violence." Rodney's eyes widened. Malik dribbled twice. The rhythm found its pulse again. Sneakers squeaked, shoulders loosened. The game resumed, nervous energy transforming into motion, into something alive and breathing. Near the Impala, Ramon leaned against the hood, arms crossed, watching every movement on that court. His jaw worked side to side. Something had shifted, something he couldn't name yet, and that made him far more dangerous than before. Sneakers squeaked against cracked asphalt. The final buzzer, Malik's watch alarm, sent children scattering toward apartment buildings, their laughter fading into evening air. Bruce bent to retrieve the basketball, sweat darkening his gray shirt. Boots crunched closer. Ramon approached alone, his crew leaning against the black Impala 20 yards back. Hector's arms stayed crossed. Lewis lit a cigarette, smoke curling upward. "You made me look weak in front of my crew." Ramon's voice carried the weight of something heavier than anger. His tattooed forearms tensed, fists opening and closing at his sides. Bruce wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. He didn't step back. "No, I gave you a chance to look strong in a different way." Bruce held the basketball between them, a boundary neither crossed. "Those kids will remember you let them play." "That's real power." Ramon's jaw worked, grinding teeth audible in the silence. The distance between them collapsed to 3 feet, 2, close enough to smell motor oil and cologne. "Power?" Ramon's laugh came sharp, bitter. "You don't know what power means on these streets." But his voice cracked on the last word, and that fracture changed everything. Ramon's shoulders dropped half an inch, the tension in his jaw released like a spring unwinding. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question this time. The realization scraped out quiet, almost confused. His crew waited by the Impala, distant voices carrying on the breeze, but they felt miles away now. Bruce tilted his head. "I'm aware of you. There's a difference." Ramon's brow furrowed. His tattooed forearms crossed over his chest, not aggressive, defensive, protecting something newly exposed. "My father taught me fear keeps you small." Bruce's gaze drifted toward the corner where Malik had disappeared, backpack bouncing with each step. The faint slap of sneakers on pavement faded into afternoon heat. "Respect makes you grow." The words hung between them like smoke. Ramon's throat worked. He'd spent years building a reputation on fear, the kind that cleared rooms, that made grown men step aside. But this stranger, half his size, had just named it for what it was: small. Bruce turned back, eyes steady and unblinking. "What do you want these kids to feel?" The question landed like a punch Ramon hadn't seen coming. His mouth opened, closed, because the answer he'd always known, fear, suddenly tasted like ash. 10 years later, Malik stood on the same cracked asphalt, whistle hanging from his neck. 2 boys circled each other, fists raised. He stepped between them. "You both want the same thing, respect." The older boy's shoulders dropped. Malik smiled, hearing Bruce's voice in his own words. Across West Oakland, Jamal pinned flyers to telephone poles. "Community meeting tonight, conflict resolution workshop, free." The chain-link fence rattled under his palm, and he remembered the afternoon fear became choice. Rodney's daughter climbed onto his lap, smelling of soap and bedtime. "Tell me the basketball story again, Daddy." He pulled her close. "Once a very small man stopped a very big man without throwing a single punch." Her eyes widened. "How?" "By showing him a different kind of strength." At the youth center, Ramon sat across from a kid with teardrops tattooed beneath his eye. "You think violence makes you powerful?" The boy nodded. Ramon leaned forward. "I used to think that too, until someone gave me a choice I didn't know existed." The lesson moved through blood and breath. One Saturday. One man who refused fear. One question that cracked foundation and let light pour through. Generations carried it forward, seed becoming forest.